Washington, D.C. housing market plummets as Doge lays off thousands of federal workers. Do we have the Washington, D.C. real estate market absolutely tanking? Is it coincidental? Is it seasonal? Is it nonsense? Let's get into it, because one of my first thoughts when I see something like this is, number one, there hasn't been enough time for the market to tank. Number two, this seems coincidental. Like, hey, we want that to be happening because that means people are afraid they're going to get fired because Doge is doing what it's supposed to do, which is make government more efficient. Yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. So whenever I see one of these, blanket statements against a whole market, I'm immediately suspicious. Because this doesn't happen very often, where you've got cause and effect, especially that quickly. But, it could be a combination of 3 or 4 different events going on simultaneously. That is often what you've got. Like seasonally, we're about to come into springtime, right? So you got people putting their home on the market. You've had a market where you've got interest rates that got jacked up July of 2022. Here we are, damn near 3 years later, and people are actually figuring out they got to move on with their life, whether or not the interest rates are, under 7 or not. So things are happening. Home prices in Washington, D.C. have plummeted since the Trump administration and the Department of Governmental Efficiency began discussing layoffs. Since Donald Trump took office, Elon Musk's Department of Governmental Efficiency has fired thousands of federal workers and gotten a bunch of them to quit voluntarily, right? In the wake of those layoffs, droves of former federal employees have packed up their bags, put their homes on the market, causing the average listing price to sink. In November, median home. Okay, so that's their first couple of statements here, right? You got statements being made. And then in November, the median home in the nation's capital was worth $699, according to Redfin. Okay. So I don't take anything Redfin says or Zillow says. It's a starting point of conversation, but that's their modeling. All right. Let's assume their modeling was correct. Was worth $699, but by February, the median home price dropped 20%, bringing the price down to $560. TKL found out that there were nearly 8,000 homes listed for sale in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Now, without knowing how many is normal, you're just like, oh, okay, that's some homes on the market. Almost half of them have been put on the market in the last 30 days. All right, so you got a bunch of people putting the homes in the markets. Okay, all right, that's not that weird. What's weird is that we haven't had any homes in the market the last 3 years, but really not, because people don't want to come off their low interest rate mortgages. Makes sense. If you got a mortgage at 3%, why would you sell that home, take that equity, move it into another home, and pay 7.5%, 7%, whatever it is right now? You wouldn't. And people haven't been until now, because now maybe they get to that point 3 years in and they're like, all right, I finally got to divorce my partner, my whatever, husband, wife, whatever it is. We had that third kid 2 years ago. We got, 2 kids in one tiny bedroom. We need more space. We need to move on with our lives. Those are some of the things that we're seeing on the Summit side of things as far as people making moves. So there's also been a surge in new listings of homes over $1 million. According to TKL, there are 525 listings worth $1 million and 44 listings worth $5 million, suggesting Doge layoffs could affect people in high-profile jobs. Yeah, they will. It will. It will for sure. But is it in the droves? Is it causing a 20% decrease in value? That's where I'm like, really? Okay. Redfin agents in Washington, D.C. reported that return to office mandates and uncertainty for federal workers have caused a listing surge. Okay. All right. There's a nugget that we need to talk about. Return to office mandates. So federal government, you guys are all coming in 5 days a week. We've been in Seattle. We've been going through just that. Amazon basically said, Everybody's back in the office 5 days a week, and it literally impacted traffic patterns here in the Pacific Northwest. When Amazon goes back with all their employees, it's a lot of darn people on the road. And so that impacts things. So when you talk about return to office mandates for the federal government, so now you've got people that have been not commuting in because there's been no mandate from a location 2 hours away from their office. Now they're putting that house in the market because they ain't commuting 2 hours each way, even though everybody said during the pandemic, working in the office will never happen again. Not in our lifetimes. This will never happen. And I said, nah, give it a few years. You'll be back in the office. Well, here we are 5 years later. Back to the office, folks. I recently worked with a couple who bought their dream home with me a few years ago during the pandemic when everybody was told, work from home forever. Wherever you want to live, go live there. But now they're considering listing because they want to be closer to public transportation. They do not want to commute. Their current home is terrible for commuting. But does that mean they put their home on the market and it doesn't sell and the price drops? That's my question, right? Because we've consistently had a shortage of housing in all markets. DC? All right. Do you have some individual stuff going on there? They both work for the government and want a more convenient commute because they'll need to return to in-person work soon. Joe Chavez, a Redfin premier agent in Kansas City, Missouri, said, since the inauguration, I've met with a few people, including one federal government employee, who are selling specifically because of anticipated return to office orders. I also spoke to a client who is looking to sell and upgrade to a larger home, but he canceled those plans because he's worried about losing his job due to restructuring of government jobs. You know what? If this were to happen to a real estate market, this would be one of those specific markets. But the storyline doesn't make sense because on one hand, you've got people moving back in closer to DC. It should be the further out suburban locations that are taking a huge hit. But we're not talking specifics here because living closer to downtown, the pressure's got to be on that because everybody's going back to work. Nobody wants at the office. Nobody wants to commute. On Friday, Trump and Musk fired over 9,500 workers who handled everything from managing federal lands to caring for military veterans. Workers in the Department of Interior, Energy, Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Health, and Human Services had their employment terminated in a drive that so far has largely, but not exclusively, targeted probationary employees in their first year on the job who have fewer employment protections. So it's not the established folks that have been there forever. It's people that maybe we just don't need in the government. Weird. Yeah, maybe we've got enough already. We don't need to bring more into the system. The firings are in addition to the roughly 75,000 workers who've taken a buyout that Trump and Musk have offered to give them to leave voluntarily, according to the White House. In addition to the job reductions, Trump and Musk have tried to gut civil service protections for career employees, frozen most U.S. foreign aid, and attempted to shutter some governmental agencies, such as the U.S. Agency for International Development, Consumer Financial Bureau, almost entirely. There's a lot of nonsense in the government. I think it should be closed down as well. Does that impact Washington, D.C. housing? Again, I am not seeing the absolute proof here. Almost half of the probationary workers at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, yada, yada. You get Forest Service, 3,400 hires, don't really care. 1,200 to 2,000 workers, Department of Energy. But the layoffs have been partly rescinded to retain essential. Okay, I mean, got to be honest here. I am not trusting this data. I don't trust it. Here's a chart showing median home price in the Washington, D.C. area. November 2024, the median home price in D.C. was worth $699, according to Redfin. Today, the median home is worth $560, according to Redfin, marking a 20% drop in 3 months. So this is a post on X, old Twitter, essentially telling us exactly what we saw at the beginning of that other article. Does this make a lot of sense? Well, I mean, the numbers are correct. I mean, let's assume the numbers are correct. This is what Redfin is telling us. Does that necessarily correlate to a drop in value of 20%. No, because that initial price could have been off. You just don't know. What it does do is it does line up with election day and with Doge beginning mass layoffs. Those items have happened. Those events have happened. And so maybe you've got a little bit of a decline. Well, is it because of that other stuff? Maybe. I'm just not seeing big numbers to support it. I'm not seeing a number of stories. So I kind of dug further. One of my other things is I just did a quick search for the title and came up with, all right, you got the Daily Mail, you got Newsweek, you got MSN, and that's really about it that have covered this topic. Not exactly, I trust the Daily Mail, but they tend to exaggerate things. Newsweek, no. MSN, no. Trust them as far as I can throw them. Not very far, right? So do we have a ton of indicators from other news outlets saying the same thing? No. And then you look at the videos. Okay, you got one person did a 15-minute video. You got another 9-minute video, Washington, D.C. But they're doing the exact same thing I am. Are they bringing any more proof to the game? No, absolutely not. So Newsweek, in their article, they go on to say what happens next. Government downsizing remains a major priority of the Trump administration, and it's likely that cuts will continue in the coming weeks and months. What percentage of these folks that are losing their jobs or exiting stage left are tenants? That's another question. Okay, how many of them are, renting an apartment in downtown? How many of them are doing whatever, wherever? This doesn't really impact them. All right, they're going to lose their lease agreement. Does that mean the landlord's just going to, throw the house on the market and just take anything? No, they're not, because that's not how this goes. But that's the direction we're led to believe. The effects of future layoffs could reduce housing demand in the entire DC area. But then you've got government, and government always seems to backfill its positions, right? So you got the entire DC area, according to the analysis by Devin and Dustin, especially in the neighborhoods of DC, Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, and Silver Spring, and Rockville in Maryland. A drop in demand in these areas is likely to increase competition among sellers and lead to a softening of home prices. Okay, have we had enough inactivity? What is the market absorption like? What is the economic picture moving forward like? So many of those factors that we don't have answers to. We have generic answers. All right, interest rates are headed in the wrong direction. They've been going up. We don't have a ton of supply, so anything that comes in the market typically gets bought up. Does that make sense for a 20% drop in DC? No. But, a handful of these other factors, you put them together, maybe. While this may be good news for buyers struggling with high mortgage rates and high prices, local businesses may suffer from dampened economic activity in the area. That's only if people move away and other people don't come in to buy their home. Know what I mean? In the simplest of terms. Is the housing market plummeting? I gotta be honest. I'd have to say no. You might see a little bit of a drop, but we haven't had enough time to impact the real estate market. The real estate market is known as inelastic, meaning you can put a whole bunch of supply on. You don't really see the result of that till months later when you've got closings, because, real estate takes a minimum of 30 days, maybe 2 weeks if you're all cash and you're just, boom, I want this, no contingencies, boom, let's do it. But 30 days, 60 days, pretty normal. And then to have enough data to look at the market and go, yep, that's happening, takes months to figure out a trend. So this here, I would say no go on the market plunging, but you've probably got enough stats for somebody to say, look at it plunge. Know what I mean? And not really have it be the cause and effect that it's put out in the article. But we talked about it, right? I'm always going to cover this kind of thing, whether good, bad, or indifferent, whether I think it's correct or not. In this one, I think you've got enough pieces of the puzzle that are variables that housing market plunging? No, but I think you'll see a slowdown. And with layoffs, you're always going to have an impact to the real estate market. How much? I don't know. We'll have to see. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again for being here. Bye for now.